Hello, good evening, good morning, good day to people joining in from across the globe. This is your quarantine host again, Robin Thomas, after a little break. Good to connect back. I hope all of you all are safe and your family is safe as well. And hopefully, in another few weeks, we should be probably out of this situation. In India, especially, we are waiting for our Prime Minister to go live at 8 o'clock. That is like 1 hour from now. Hopefully, he might have some good news for us, at least a little bit better news than what he has been giving us for the last few weeks. Um, as you know, we have planned a series of sessions for the last few weeks, and we continue to do that. Physical well-being, fitness is one of the key areas that we have been focusing on. Even before COVID started, it has been one of the fulcrum of how TCS designs its welfare for its people. So going on the same vein, we have somebody really special joining in from the United States of America. But I would not take the privilege of introducing her myself. I have a special guest today as well. We have Michelle Taylor, who's the head of sports sponsorships at TCS globally. She is herself a fitness enthusiast, a marathoner, a sports marketeer. Michelle has been with TCS since 2014, and she takes care of the global sports sponsorship, including portfolio of more than 23 races and events. So whichever races and events that you think we are participating, including the TCS New York Marathon, Michelle is the person who's making it happen for all of us. So Michelle, without much ado, it's over to you.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much. And we're really excited to be here today. And we've got a fantastic guest, which I'm so excited about. And she's got an amazing story and journey to share with you. But before we get into her running journey, I just wanted to share a little bit of background on TCS's running journey, as Robin had alluded to. And as many of you know, TCS has got a huge push in terms of TCS wellness and fitness, and really wants to make sure that our employees are staying healthy and engaged. But that really started over 10 years ago, this journey of running for TCS. It started long ago with our then CEO went to the doctor, right? And went in for a checkup and got some news saying he needs to be more active and needs to really change his lifestyle. So he went home and thought about it and started running, and quickly saw how that really impacted his life and made him just more focused and really felt better and able to do so much more with his days. And he thought, well, if it had this kind of an impact on me, imagine what it could do for our TCSers, right? So quickly gathered a team around him and said, let's put together a program to really inspire our employees to get healthier and fit. And that's where TCS Fit for Life was born. And that, as many of you know, is this sort of gamified program where TCS encourages employees to create teams and then log their activities, whether it's walking, running, swimming, biking, yoga, whatever it is, but to stay really healthy and active. And again, quickly saw that so many TCSers got a lot of benefit from that, and started thinking again, if it can benefit our employees so much, what about the communities where we're working, and what about our clients? And that's where TCS really started looking externally for the right platforms to align with to encourage his healthy lifestyle. And sports sponsorship was born, right? We started engaging with endurance running events globally, and now have partnerships with over 14 global running events around the world, and are inspiring people and whether clients, employees, to get healthier and fit. So this journey really has been tremendous for TCS. And our speaker today has actually been part of the journey with us, as she participated in the TCS New York City Marathon in 2019 as Team TCS and Team TCS teachers. She is a inspiration in herself, really encouraging people to break the boundaries of what you think of in terms of a typical runner. So really wants people to know that no matter what size, shape, color, everybody can do this and everybody should be included. One quick note, she was the 2018 National Geographic's Adventure of the Year, so tremendously inspiring. And with that, we'll introduce our speaker and our guest today, Mirna Valerio.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. How are you?
I am great. I am absolutely great, actually. I have no
Excellent. Excellent. Well, we're so thankful to have you with us today and would love for you to share with us a little bit about your journey. I know that it's very similar, very purpose-driven journey in running. So please share with us how it all started.
Absolutely. And first of all, thank you for having me on the show today. I think this is my first time doing sort of a cross-continental live. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. Okay, so I started running in high school in 1989 when I was a freshman, and I tried out for the field hockey team, which is one of my favorite sports, and noticed that there was so much running in the sports, running up and down the field. And I'm from Brooklyn, New York, and I'd never participated in a team sport before, so I was shocked into how much running I actually had to do. And so I decided the day after the tryouts, which included a mile run to warm up, a timed mile, and then 2.5 hours of practice afterwards, that I needed to learn how to run. And so that's what I did the very next day. I was allowed to stay on the team, even though I didn't know anything about field hockey or running or anything. And even though I'd never played a sport. And that started a wonderful trajectory of running early in the morning. It was a boarding school. And so I'd roll out of bed, roll down the hill, run around the field a couple of times, and then go back up and take a shower. But it really, really set the tone for my day. And of course, back then I didn't have the words to say that, but that's what it did. And so I continued running. I played lacrosse. I was on varsity field hockey and lacrosse teams throughout high school, and I ran recreationally in college. And then, and I continued to run when I was in corporate America. I was working in corporate America in my early 20s. And then I got married, had a kid, and moved to Maryland from New York City. And that's when all my issues started. I gained a lot of weight. I was much heavier than I am now. And I wasn't sleeping. My kid was always sick, which meant that I was always sick. I missed a lot of work. He missed a lot of school. And it was just a very, very stressful situation. And, I had to pick up my husband. I had to take my husband to work at 3 o'clock in the morning, then sleep a little bit, and then take my kid to school. Then I went to school. So it was just a real compendium of just not healthy lifestyle things. And so I decided to move back up closer to New York, New Jersey, and took on an even more stressful job, and just got sicker and sicker and sicker until one day I thought I was having a heart attack. And I was driving from Pennsylvania to New York, to New Jersey, and I was, my kid was in the car. It was just me, and I started having chest pains. And so, when you're having chest pains, you think you're having a heart attack. And so I decided, after hyperventilating a lot and worrying and trying to figure out what to do, or whether I should call the ambulance or should I keep driving. I did the smart thing and I kept driving, which was not smart. Don't ever do that. Made it home, had a colleague drive me to the hospital, where I was triaged immediately. And then a couple of hours later, they told me that I was not having a heart attack and that I had actually had a panic attack. And that's not something I'd ever experienced, but apparently it feels very much like a heart attack, or what people think a heart attack might be. And I said to the doctor, I was like, well, that's not possible. I don't I don't have panic attacks. But in hindsight, thinking of all the things that I was doing, I was working at a boarding school, which, you know, it's a 24/7 operation. I had a kid, again, always sick. I was always sick. I lived in a dorm, so I ran a dorm. I ran activities. I did activities on the weekends with the kids. And I just was not sleeping or eating well. Or being physically active, which was kind of what I was used to doing. And so my body rebelled. And so after I saw a cardiologist right after being in the ER, he said, "Hey, how old is your son?" And my son was 5 back then. He's 17, almost 17 now. He's 5. And then he asked me, "Well, do you want to see him grow up?" And, cardiologists have to speak in a way that will make you listen. And that is exactly what that did. It made me listen, and it made me realize immediately in the moment that something needed to change. And so that was it. I didn't have an answer for him because, like, how do you answer? Of course I want to live. Yes, it's the obvious choice. And so I immediately, the day after, got back on the treadmill. And I had just bought a new treadmill that was serving as a closet. It had my shoes and my belts and my pants all over it. And so I cleaned it off and got back on and ran my first mile in about 4 years. And it was very painful. It wasn't that it was physically painful. I mean, it was physically painful, but the most pain came emotionally and spiritually, because I had let myself get to a point where running a mile was painful and hard and really, really difficult. And I had to walk most of it, which for me, I was trained to run 5Ks and 10Ks. And so that was where I started. And I had to reason with myself and have a conversation with myself that this is where I was starting, and I wasn't starting anywhere else. I wasn't, I wasn't in the same shape that I had been in 5 years ago. I was in the same body, but it felt very different. And so I had to contend with all of those things and be okay with that. And know that it would be different in a week. It would be different in 3 weeks. It would be different in a month. And that it would be a very, very slow process. And one in which, I would feel like I wasn't making any progress. But I knew from training before and having done hard things before that was part of the process. And so that's what I did. And eventually I started feeling better after a couple of weeks. I started running a little bit more, from 1 mile to 1.5 miles to 2. And then I said, oh, I need a goal. And so I started signing up for 5Ks. And then because I felt really slow, I was like, well, I got to continue because I want to get faster. And those turned into 10Ks. And then eventually I ran, I trained for a half marathon, and I got one of my friends to come along. I didn't tell her that I signed her up for a half marathon, but I did. And training for that half marathon sparked something in me that I did not know existed. I started spending hours and hours outside training, playing tennis, swimming and biking and doing all of these things. And I felt so good. I lost weight, but it wasn't about that. It was about the way that I felt, the amount of sleep that I was now getting, the way I was reprioritizing my life. And just like all of the benefits, all of the psychosocial benefits of running and being and doing races and exercising with people, it was just so amazing. And so, I mean, I can keep going on. I could talk about this for hours, but yeah, and that it lit a spark, and I eventually started training for a marathon that someone said, one of my colleagues said, hey, you've been running all these half marathons. Why don't you try a full marathon? And I said, that's an awful idea. How do I sign up? And that was it. That was the Marine Corps Marathon in 2011. And while I was training for that, I started my blog, Fat Girl Running. And a lot of people had trouble with that. They're all fat girl running. Oh, you shouldn't use the word fat. But I was like, I'm fat. and authentic, and I run and I love it. And, even though I'd lost 70 pounds, I was still fat. And, but it was okay. I was still running. I ran for the love of it. I ran for the way that it made me feel physically and mentally, and for the things that it was doing for me and my family. And so, so that was the beginning of why I'm actually not a teacher anymore. But I'll let you ask.
In some ways, you're actually even more of a teacher, right? It's just your classroom is opened up, right? I feel like through you, we're all learning a lot of lessons in terms of how to start, right? And persevere despite the obstacles. So you've been incredibly inspiring. Can you tell us a little bit about how you earned the nickname, the Motivator?
Sure, absolutely. So it was at one of my colleagues at that school that I was working at in New Jersey, who I had somehow, and people know me for this. Yes, I'll say, "Oh, hey, come out and do 3 miles with me," and then it turns into 7. But then I'm like, "Oh, just 1 more mile, or a half mile out and a half mile back, and we'll be done. We'll go to lunch," and then it turns into, "Oh, well, if I can do 7 miles, then maybe I can do a half marathon." I'm like, maybe that wasn't the plan. But okay. But so this woman, Leslie, she ran with me one day, and her 5 miles turned into 8. And then, we trained together, and then I posted a lot on Facebook about, all of the things that I was doing, and she was so grateful that I had motivated her to sign up for a half marathon, and just started calling me the Motivator. After the motivator, Terminator, and it just stuck. I was like, oh my goodness, that is it. People have called me lots of other nicknames, Pebbles being for one, because I have Flintstone feet, but I don't like that one. Motivator is, I think, the embodiment of who I want to be, and who I aspire to be.
Great, thank you. We're definitely getting a lot of questions in on the chat, so I want to get to some of those. But what can you share with anyone who wants to, maybe start being active and just isn't sure where to start?
I think just like I did, even though I had been an athlete before and I had been very active, I was starting from square one again. And I think the most important thing for me was to acknowledge that I'm starting from square one, and that is okay. I'm not going to be like somebody who's been working out for 5 years straight. I'm not going to be like somebody who's been, working with a personal trainer for the last year. That's not where I am. So once you acknowledge that, I think it makes things so much more easy and doable and achievable. So that's one. The other thing is, I would say, definitely give yourself time to get into a routine. It takes at the very least 21 days to establish a new routine. And even if it's 5 minutes a day, even if it's 10 minutes a day, establish that routine, and make an appointment with yourself. Be there for yourself. And know that, there will be a ripple effect, with you focusing on yourself and being there for yourself, giving yourself grace, giving yourself time and patience to achieve something. Others will see that, especially if you have kids, if you have spouses or whoever is in your circle, they will see that. And then, I really like the idea of just starting with one thing. If it's walking, just walk. You don't have to do everything all at the same time. You don't have to walk and do push-ups and do mountain climbers and do burpees. No one should ever do burpees, but you just start with one thing, and then once after a couple of weeks, then you can add something else. Again, the goal is to give yourself grace, and to really ease your way into what will be a huge shift in your lifestyle. You know how they say making up your bed changes the tone of your day? Mm-hmm. I never used to make my bed because my mom did it for me growing up. So I would always say, I don't really know how to make my bed. But 5 years ago, actually not even 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I was listening to a podcast or something, and they said something about making your bed and making your morning magical. And so I decided to try it. And it just gave me this sense of accomplishment. Every time I walk by my bedroom, I'm like, my bed is made. Yeah, I did that. And it seems small and silly, but it really does work, because that gets you into a habit. And so now, what other habit do I want to add on to that? And for me, that was, having coffee, and then doing work and being present and writing. And so like it kind of exploded into this thing. So you start by walking, or you start by doing a couple of crunches before you go to bed. And then when you're comfortable with that, when you feel a little bit stronger, then you can add something else. And then, with me, it was just running a mile. And then after I felt good with running a mile, I added a half a mile to that, and then 2 miles. And then when I felt strong, I started doing more yoga. So it really, really, you have to give yourself a lot of time. Nothing is going to happen overnight. It just doesn't happen like that. The media sells you this idea that things will happen overnight. Just think of training for a marathon. You don't start with running 26 miles. In fact, you don't usually ever run 26 miles before you do a whole marathon. You train your body, you let your muscles and your tendons and ligaments get used to the load that you're putting on them. You take a break every couple of weeks, and then you do more. So, I mean, I think that's how we should live life. I think marathoning is a philosophy. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you stay motivated to run every day? A lot of our employees, right, are struggling right now given current circumstances.
Yes.
And how do you keep that motivation up?
I definitely am not motivated about 80% of the time, to be completely honest and truthful. Another thing that I've learned about all this stuff that I'm doing with running and adventuring, sometimes I really, really do not feel like running. I don't. But I know, number one, that's part of my job. But not just my career now, but it is also part of my job to take care of my body so that I have longevity and long-term health and wellness. And so I like to think of it, every workout that I do, whether it's running, whether it's yoga, whether it's hiking, as putting miles in the bank and putting health in the bank, so that I can be here for my kid. I can be here for other people. I can be here for myself. And so, that I'll end up, in old age, wishing that I had done this and wishing that I had done that, when I have the time now. So absolutely, like, even if it's hard to get outside now, and that's very depressing not to be able to go outside. But if you think, in terms of having some perspective about this time, it's a few months within many, many years. Just like this year is just a year amongst many, many years, amongst many decades. So I try to have perspective. I try to make sure that whatever I'm doing something for my body. I'm doing something for my spirit, my mental health, by lying on my floor and doing crunches with a personal trainer, or looking for a free online session, or signing up for a membership where, I am there for myself. I make an appointment with myself, and I'm only accountable to myself. So yeah, that's what I don't think of it in terms of motivation. I just think of it in terms of a job. This is what I need to do for my body.
Oh, right. I like that. I think it's very powerful, right? This is it's your body, and you need to take care of it. I like that. We've got some questions about some of your ultra running now, and folks wanting to know a little bit about that, and maybe you can share some factors that have helped make you, helped you be successful at that.
Sure. Well, I just got a notification that one of my favorite ultras was canceled yesterday. And it's okay. It is totally fine, because now I have all this time to train and to kind of rebuild from the start, and it's amazing. But I really love ultra running, and I think I know that my body was built for ultra running, because I I thrive off of the long, long miles, the difficulty, the challenge, the boredom, because guys, it's really boring. Once you're, out there and you're in 10 miles, 15 miles, 30 miles, 45 miles, you have to contend with a lot of things, the boredom, the pain, the mental challenge of being out there for a really, really long time. You have to contend with, is this acute pain? Is this just fatigue? Is this just soreness? There are all these things that you have to be thinking about. You have to always push against the desire to quit, because that's huge. I already ran 20 miles. Why do I need to run anymore? And so, it's a really, really phenomenal sport. And I think that, again, it's very transferable. The things that I learn in ultra marathoning and just marathoning in general are all transferable to real life. I mean, that is real life, right? We choose to do marathons and ultra marathons. We may not choose to be in an interminable meeting, but there are all these tactics you can use, to keep yourself engaged, to keep yourself grateful. I have a gratitude practice that I do when I'm having a difficult time. Like I express gratitude for all of those who've come before me and who've made space for me to do the things that I do today. I give gratitude to my body for working and for moving me forward. I actually do a thing that I stole from the practice of yoga nidra, where I do I call it a running nidra, where I focus when I'm having a difficult time. I focus on my toes, the soles of my feet, my heels, my ankles, all the way up to the top of my head. And then it puts me in the moment. It makes me grateful for all the little pains and aches that will go away. And it makes me grateful that I'm alive. So that is what ultra running is to me. And there's so many different races and things that give me different things. There are the one that was just canceled. It's right up the road for me, about 30 minutes. And, it just makes me appreciative of the state that I live in, because it's so beautiful and it's really difficult. But I meet great people and there's great food afterwards. And the community is really awesome. You'll find that, you have your couple of people who are sort of type A, really fast. They want to get this done in 4 hours or 5 hours. But mostly everyone is like, I just want to be outside for hours. I want to test my body. I want to test my spirit. I want to learn more about my own grit. And that's what you'll find. And you'll find a lot of older people, which I love, just killing it out there. Just, and they, do 100 miles. I have not done 100 miles yet, but, and it just makes you so hopeful for humanity and our potential. If this person who is 75 is lapping me not once, not twice, but 4 times, then I have something to aspire to. And so there's so much encapsulated in the sport that, again, this is something I can talk about for 3 hours. I was a teacher, so we talk at you.
Right. Well, I think we could all listen for hours too, right? I find myself even taking notes. So your teaching is working. So what are maybe a few mistakes that you've made along the way, or things you've learned?
Oh, so many things, so many mistakes. I'm a person, I'm definitely a polymath, right? So I do a lot of different things. Like you see behind, you might be able to see that I'm a musician. I'm a classically trained singer. I'm a pianist. I am a writer. I taught Spanish, I taught music, I'm a diversity practitioner, so I work in that area too of equity and inclusion. So I do a lot of different things. So it's up until just a couple of months ago, it's very hard for me to say no. And I said yes to everything, and then I burned out. And And it's tough. It's tough to realize and to acknowledge that I can't do everything. Maybe I can do everything in a lifetime, but I can't do it all the time, all at one time. And so that was, I was taking speaking engagements. I was doing running events and not sleeping again. And it just kind of went right back into that same kind of lifestyle. And my body was very vocal about it. I'm still reeling from some of the effects of that now, contending with an Achilles injury. So, and so now what this time has allowed me to do is to slow down and to think and to I call it radical reprioritization of my life. What's really important to me? What do I not need to do right now that maybe I can do later? What do I not need to do at all? It's made me spend time with my boy, who's a teenager. And it's just been a real gift. So definitely, that is one of the biggest mistakes that I have made, that I keep making to a certain extent, but not as much as I have before, because I think I've learned my lesson, or I'm learning at least. I would say, yeah, probably that's it. That's the biggest mistake.
That's a big one.
Happening. Well, actually another one is that just in my work, sometimes, and I'm really very conscientious about this right now. When I was a teacher, when I was in boarding school is a weird place because, as family friendly as it is, it's not really family friendly because your job, you live at your job. And so I did make the mistake of sometimes prioritizing my job over, say, going to a show at my kid's school. And I'm still feeling guilty about that, rightfully so, because I really have to do this at work. And then here's my kid with his first solo that I missed, and I'm obviously still very affected by that. But yeah, those are some of the things that I think the two biggest mistakes that I've made, that I'm trying to with my kid, like I'm not trying to make up for that, but I'm trying to make sure that I am available now.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, those are the two big things.
Yeah, that actually plays right into, we've got a question from one of our TCSers who's asking how you balance the family life and some of your personal aspirations, right? Any tips on that?
Sure, there's no such thing as balance. It doesn't exist. I actually, because I have been so consumed with my work, traveling. My kid was in boarding school, so I taught out of school and then I left, and they allowed him to stay for the next year. And then I was a boarding school kid, but I missed him so much that I was totally okay with it. Like I was waiting for him to say, "Well, Mom, can I just come home?" And so he called me and asked if he could come home. I let him finish out the year, and then I took him out of school. So we would have with this year was supposed to be an adventure year, and half of it was where he traveled with me, and we went to Costa Rica, went to Mexico, where he actually went missing for a couple of hours in the Copper Canyons. It's going to be the first chapter of my next book, and we've just been having these, went to Bermuda, like these really cool opportunities to be together and do cool things. And so, and even though now we're grounded at home, we still do cool things. He cooks. He loves Gordon Ramsay. So I call him Gordon Ramsay the Black. and he made me a phenomenal Mother's Day meal. And he's very, very much into very highfalutin food. Yay, Mom. and so yeah, so we've done that, and sometimes he comes with me to my races, and but really, right now, as he is a teenager, I'm trying to give him some space, so he doesn't call me clingy again, and, and trying to allow him to grow and just to be there when he needs me. My husband he's from West Africa, and so he travels back and forth between the States and the States and West Africa, Burkina Faso, and so that was tough. That was just a tough lifestyle. It's been like that for a couple of years, having space and time for him and for my son and for myself. But when I prioritize myself and my health and wellness, things tend to balance out themselves. So yeah, maybe I didn't answer your question. I tried.
Right. I think that's just it. It's a process, right? And it's an ongoing process and journey. I think we all feel that. You mentioned you're a writer, and we know that you've got some books out there, and we've got a question. Someone's asking about what books you find interesting, but I'd like to hear about, what you've written so far, and then what other inspirations inspire you. What other books inspire you?
Are we talking about this book? This is my this is my memoir, a beautiful work in progress that that was published in 2017. So it's been a couple of years, and it's been what a ride it's been. And I wrote it after I started writing it after I had been featured in Runner's World magazine and on NBC Nightly News here in the States, and I was approached by literary agents, which usually doesn't happen. Usually you have to approach them. And then suddenly I was writing a book. And I've always been a writer. I wrote for this magazine called Urban Latino, which is now defunct, but out of New York City right after college. And then I wrote on and off for various publications. And so writing is one of again, I'm a polymath. Writing is one of the things that I do. And so, it's been an incredible journey. Just this morning, I got an email from someone in Croatia who had just read my book, and it just made my day. I'm going to have such a great day today. You guys. And so, it's really it's an interconnected set of essays about not just about running. I mean, they all lead to running. All roads lead to running. But I really wanted to fill in the gaps that the media had left out. So because people know me. Oh, there's this fat runner who runs ultra marathons, and that was the story. Well, which is still a story, but why? What are the important factors? I talk a lot about my education, which is extremely important to me. I talk a lot about music, which a lot of people who haven't read my book, they don't know that I was a professional musician for a while. And so those things, all of those things, I talk about my family, my, where I lived and languages and food and my students, because all of those things are so important to me, and all the reasons why I run. And so that's what the book is. And I also wanted people to know that we are all beautiful works in progress. We all are, wherever we are on our own personal spectra, that's, we're beautiful. And the process is beautiful. And, what we turn out to be is beautiful. And, what we start at is beautiful. So that's what the memoir is. I probably would have written it a little bit differently had I written it a little bit later, but there it is. It's doing well. I still get a check every month. And then so now I'm working on my second book, which is, it will be memoir-ish, but it also will be the parenting lessons I've learned through adventure. With my son. So that's why I'm starting out with him getting missing in the Copper Canyons of Mexico, where people die and disappear. That was scary, but he's fine. He's sleeping right now. He's in the next room. But, I learned a lot. That whole trip was a huge metaphor for parenting and how the kids, they're mostly all right. They're going to be fine. because, you know, we do our best as parents to teach them and to model, and they're listening. They don't like to let on that they're listening, but they're listening. And so there are all these, you know, metaphors that I've gotten from all of our trips that we've done together, and all of the experiences we've had together, you know, just as mother and son. And I really want to kind of put that out there, especially for people who are African American, because there are no African American parenting books that are positive and that don't pathologize being Black. So there are a lot of things that I'm thinking about. So that's what I'm working on now. I've got a ton of articles and blog posts in Women's Running Magazine. I've got some stuff in Runner's World and Outside. And talking about all different things: adventure, running, training, not being afraid to run in the woods, those types of things.
Nice. That is really amazing, and I love the title of that book. Right, Beautiful Works in Progress is really inspiring. What books or media, podcasts have inspired you? Any recommendations you have for us?
Yes. So many. So another thing that I've been doing and taking advantage of is the time to read. I'm a reader. And you know, when I'm on the road, which is 80% of the time, obviously not now, I listen to books, I read books, but I just, the act of having a physical book open will always be special to me. And so I love that I'm able to do that. Right now, I'm actually reading Christopher McDougall's Running with Sherman. Chris McDougall is the guy that wrote Born to Run. Years ago, about the running with the Tarahumara indigenous peoples in the Copper Canyons. That's why my son and I were there. We were running with the Tarahumara. And so he came out with this book, Running with Sherman, about running with a donkey. And I'm not a huge animal lover, you know, but someone gave me the book and I said, no, it's here. I might as well read it. It is delightful. It's absolutely delightful. It talks about animal behavior and the relationships between humans and animals, and all of these other just very well researched things are in this book. And it's a very readable book. It's very enjoyable. So that's what I'm reading now. I recently read a book called Books for Living. By a writer named Will Schwalbe. Here, actually, I'll show you the spine right here, Books for Living. And it's a set of essays about his favorite books around living your fullest life. And that sometimes that means resting and being idle, which I thought was very appropriate for now. Again, delightful is the word that I use when I describe books. That after you read them, you close them and you're like, and you appreciate life so much, right? He also wrote a book called The End of Life Book Club, and I think that's where this book comes from. That he wrote when his mom was dying of pancreatic cancer, and as awful as that sounds, that book was also delightful because it was all these books that taught you about life and living. Man, there's so many things. I just bought a bunch of books. There's another book that I'm reading called Chasing the Bright Side, and this woman's family lost all their money because their uncle, Bernie Madoff, ran away with it. And I actually know her sister. Her sister was one of my backpacking instructors years ago. And I didn't know this about their family until I read the book. And it is all of these lessons and some worksheets on how to be optimistic. And, you know, one of the things that I've learned about optimism is that it's not just about being positive. It's because, hey, just be positive. No, that doesn't work. It never works. But because optimism has to be grounded in reality, and this reality that we're in seems it is very doom and gloom. You know, on the one hand, there are people dying, there are people whose lives are forever being affected, people who are losing their jobs, their homes, their financial security. But on the other hand, suddenly we have to be thinking about the future. Like, we have to think about the future and how we want that future to be. But that future has to be rooted in what's happening now. and in reality. And so that's, it looks all bright and shiny. And it is bright and shiny. So she tells these stories where she's failed miserably and, with her tail between her legs, but how she grew out of each of those instances. And and so like I've been, I savor this book, maybe a chapter a week, because I want to work on the things that she's working on in my own life. So I mean, again, this is something that I read 10 books at a time. But only one. I can read many nonfiction books and then only one fiction, one novel at a time, because I don't want to mix up the characters. But in terms of podcasts, there are many podcasts that I love. One of my favorites is Run the World. With Nicole DeBoom, who is the founder of Skirt Sports. They were one of my sponsors, and sadly they are going away. But she's this incredible podcast where she brings all of these really, really cool people together to talk about life lessons and how we run the world. What's your little nugget for running the world? And there's lots of wisdom there. Rich Roll is another favorite podcast. And these are all podcasts that I've been on. But Rich Roll, again, an incredible speaker and thought leader, and he brings on really cool people, and his podcasts are really long. They're like 2.5 hours long. So if you have 2.5 hours, maybe you're cleaning the house or something, or doing something that takes a long time, it's really worth your time. And another one, just kind of on the business side, is called the Hello 7 podcast. Trying to get women to 7 figures. So I listen to it religiously. So like there are tons of things that I do to make sure that I'm still learning, keeping my mind and body occupied, and also reading. Just reading in itself makes you more empathetic. Especially when you're reading fiction, because then you allow yourself different levels of empathy and identifying with people, and that actually transfers over into real life. So, and there's data behind that. So, reading, listening to podcasts, listening to music. I love the Cranberries. I love the the Indigo Girls. I don't listen to like playlists. I listen to albums. So, like when I'm feeling like I need to go, and rock out, I listen to some loud Cranberries.
And when you run, do you listen to music or podcasts, or do you not? Which people fall on one side of the fence or the other usually.
I am on the mostly I do not listen to anything when I run. If I am in the woods and I'm feeling a little creeped out, I'll turn something on just so I'm not feeling creeped out. But mostly I just kind of listen to my own footfalls and listen to the birds and the streams. When I'm on the road, I have to be absolutely focused and nothing is ever in my ears. But if I'm on a 20-miler and I'm in the country, even on the road, like I'll turn something on. I won't put it in my ears. I'll just like have something going on. It might be a podcast. It might be the Cranberries. But never anything in my ears.
Got it. We've got another question here from one of our TCSers, and they said they always thought that running just involves a pair of sneakers and the spirit to keep going. But what else, according to you, is important for someone to run, and is professional training necessary?
That is a great question. I mean, I'm of the camp that you really do only need sneakers or tennis, depending on where you are, or gym shoes. But depending on what kind of experience you want to have while running, that will determine the kinds of things that you need. Of course, I have my watch, my Garmin, that I will not go anywhere without, because I love data. I love numbers. I love to see what my very slow pace was for today, or how much vertical gain I did. I love that stuff. But if that's not something that you need, then then don't wear it. I think, you can just go out with your phone or be on Strava or something like that. I don't think you need professional training. I think if there's a goal that you want to attain, and you don't know how to get there, that's the time when you hire a coach or you hire a personal trainer. But mostly you can just go out and run. And there are also tons of resources on the internet. There are training plans, there are videos, there's so much free stuff you don't have to pay for, that will help you, but you just have to be, just have to have a critical eye, especially when stuff's free or even when you pay for stuff. If the coach doesn't work out, if they have their one way of coaching and they will not deviate from that, then maybe that's something that will cause you to look at someone else or something else. I think, again, it really depends on what your goals are. You want to get faster. You want to PR at the TCS New York City Marathon. Then maybe you should get a coach. Actually, you should get a coach, because, it takes the burden of writing a training plan. It takes it out of your hands. I have a coach. And I am a coach. I have my own coaching clientele. And for a long time, I was like, I don't need no coach. but I actually, when I was training for the Boston Marathon in 2018, I had a chance because I was on another team, and another team of teachers. This teacher thing keeps coming back. I said, well, you know what? It's free. I don't have to pay for it. So let me try with this guy. And the first week, he had me running a couple of miles. It wasn't what I was used to. And I said, who does this guy think I am? I can run more miles than this. And then and I was complaining to everybody. And then the next week, he had me running 50 miles, which was a lot. And I said, who does this guy think I am? And he had to get to know me. He had to get to see how many miles I can do without injuring myself. And and that was actually at the end of 2017. I still train with him. He's incredible. And I don't have to think about how many miles I have to do on any particular day or what kind of workout I have to do, because that's his job. And so my job is to go out and run and do the workout, and what a weight off of me that is. So absolutely, if you have a big goal, if your goal is to run a marathon for the first time or run a 5K for the first time, and you're really not sure about how to go about it, then hire a coach. Or if you're pretty sure you got the basics, then you can just get a training plan online, and then do it yourself.
Great, very inspiring. We've got a few more questions coming in, and then I know we do need to wrap it up in a few minutes, but I know we could talk running all day long, but we've got one more question asking about what role diet plays in any of your training.
That's a great question. And that for me is when I was first training for my first marathon and my first half marathons. I was very, very concerned about what I ate and how many calories I had a day and how many calories I was burning. But then it became too much. And then I kind of became obsessed with it. And so I didn't think that was a healthy thing. And so now I actually, my weight fluctuates, 10 to 15 pounds, like over the course of the year, depending on whether I'm training or not. And I just eat what I eat. I will say that because I travel so much, that has definitely taken a toll on the quality of food that I eat, because when you're in an airport, there's airport food, or you're a road stop, there's road stop food. And so it's, for me, so when I am traveling, it's really, really hard to eat well. But when I'm home, like now, when I'm cooking my meals, my son is cooking my meals, it's much easier to eat well and to eat whole foods, and just to feel better. So again, we are all home now. It's a great opportunity to eat well. And I will say also in ultra running, ultra runners eat everything. Because when you're running 60 miles,
yes,
you need the fuel. Like, you need fuel. It's not about, oh, I really want to eat all of these M&Ms and all of these burritos. You need the fuel, because without it, you can't run or recover. So you'll hear a lot of people saying, well, Dean Carnazzi's, ate a whole pizza while he was running in San Francisco. I was like, that's because he was burning that many calories. That guy's fast. And he was running 50 miles on pavement, and he rolled up the pizza. If you've read that book of his, I think it's called 50 Marathons or something of the sort. And he rolled up a pizza. He had it delivered to him at an intersection. Rolled up a whole pizza and ate it while he was running. And so people look at that, and people who don't know about, fuel and ultra marathoning, and how, like, you just need calories all the time. And, there are people who don't need as many calories because their bodies are, metabolically different. Yeah, I mean, I don't go out and eat a burger unless I'm running 100K, which I did, and then it made me sick. So yeah, like it really depends on the kind of running that you're doing. If you're running a 5K or a 10K, you might not need as much fuel as, say, if you're running a marathon or an ultra. I know that when after a marathon and after an ultra, I can't eat because my stomach is not there yet. My stomach is still working off of gels and just kind of shutting down. And so, but I know that exactly at 3:45 a.m. the next morning, I will be ravenous. And so I eat at 3:45 the next morning, and then I'm good to go.
Right. Everybody, right. Finding what works for you, right, is definitely key. Well, we've been getting a lot of questions around the topic of motivation, and how you've and sharing your story have been very inspiring to a lot of folks. As we start to wrap up here, I just would love to hear from you, maybe a few final, like, what are the 3 things you would want TCSers to take away, or to remember and learn from?
Sure, absolutely. I definitely want to reiterate the notion of perspective. I think it's really, really important, especially at this time. It's always important, when you're starting something new, when you are not feeling motivated, and just kind of having the long view. This is a moment in time. And when we think about it as a moment in time, it gives us the ability to plan and to do things now that will affect us later in a positive way. So, I mean, it works the other way. Doing awful things or not taking care of our body is going to affect us later on. It affects us now and it affects us later on. So definitely having perspective and the long view that's the first thing that I would say. The next thing I would say is also something that I mentioned earlier, is to give yourself some grace and to be kind to yourself, to be kind to other people. I think especially now, everyone's emotions are really high. Lots of people are feeling the trauma of the time and dealing with it in our own ways. And the best way is to be kind to ourselves, be kind to others, to give ourselves grace, give others grace. And then the third thing I would say is this is part of the other things, to really to take care of yourself mentally. And a lot of us don't know how to do that because we don't have time. We're always working. We're always on the phone. We're always on a call. We're always on a plane, and just really honing in on the things that will make you physically well, that will add to your physical wellness, that will add to your emotional wellness, and your spiritual wellness, if you will. I think those are really, really, really important things now and always. And I have one more other thing. When this is over, or when things are different, I think I love the idea of going out and looking for beauty, looking for the beauty in things, looking to be awed and wowed and inspired, because there actually is scientific data and many studies that suggest that when we are wowed, when we look for beauty and we find it, that it creates this feeling of self-diminishment, and not in a bad way, where we realize that we are not just one cog in the entire universe, and that we are all connected. We are all connected as humans. We're all connected as beings. And when we have that feeling, it makes us more generous and more community oriented. And so so that's something that I get to experience when I go on outdoors. You know, when my son makes an amazing meal for me without me asking, that's I'm awed and in wonderment. You know, when I see something beautiful. And so so yes, that's what I would say. I would say definitely go out and be awed.
Thank you. Thank you. And you've been so inspiring. Your story, your journey, your joy of running is just incredible. We so appreciate it. I know we could all use a little bit more of Mirna in our lives. So if you want, check out her website, themotivator.com. She's also got an incredible Instagram feed. Her blog is on her website. So you can continue to share in the joy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been really, really wonderful.
Excellent.
Fabulous. Fabulous, Michelle. Vivek, am I live or is still Mirna there? Hi.
I'm here.
Yes, hi, Mirna. Thank you so much, Michelle, for doing this. And Mirna, I must say, I came in to listen to some, running tips, but I'm going with a bunch of life lessons. It is quite invigorating to just hear you speak, and the way you narrate it, and your smile is so infectious, and your laughter. And that book, beautiful work in progress. I'm actually checking online where I can pick it up from. So thank you so much for taking time out, and a lot of people are saying thank you for answering their questions itself. So I think it's been a pretty a good 1 hour, and we are definitely inspired. Thank you so much for taking time out. And everybody who's still there, thank you for logging in enthusiastically, and we look forward to catch you again on Friday the 15th. Our CTO, Chief Technology Officer Anand Krishnan would be there, and it's going to be quite an interesting session as well. So see you there. Stay safe till then. Good night and God bless.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much.